I'm Mark Callan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. This is Mr. Saltwater Tank, RUF, raw, uncut, first impressions, the show where I call it as I see it with products that I haven't seen before. Today we're taking a first look at the Clearwater Algae Turf Scrubber. A little background before I jump into this thing. First, in the past, my stance towards algae turf scrubbers are that there's nothing wrong with them. They can work, but most of the kits that I've seen before now have looked very DIY. It's clearly someone made this in their garage, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, if someone was paying me to set up a saltwater aquarium, it's just too DIY for me to be comfortable for what I'm trying to do for the client. Now, that being said, Clearwater has recently joined up with Adaptive Reefs to have Adaptive Reefs make their scrubber units. Now, if you don't know who Adaptive Reefs are, they're a company out of Canada. They make all those Adaptive Reefs control boards, very easy to use, very professional looking board for mounting all your aquarium controllers, vortex controllers, all that kind of stuff to really make your build look nice and clean. So now Clearwater has gone to Adaptive Reef, and Adaptive Reef is now making these turf scrubbers. Now, that being said, when I heard that, I was like, oh cool, let's take a look at them because I want to see really how these things look now that they're made by more of a quote professional company. Again, there's nothing wrong with DIY, but for what I was going for with my client builds, it just didn't fit the bill. Now, that being said, let's dive into this thing. So, first thing that jumps out at me on this is everything looks very, very clean. This is a nice machined lid. Like, clearly this was cut on a CNC machine. It's very smooth through here. It's not like someone cut this and glued it together and then hand sanded it. So it's really starting to raise the bar from what I'm seeing here with something that looks professional. Same with all the acrylic work here. This has clearly been cut on a CNC. It's been put together well. There's not some big drip lines where someone put this together by hand. And something else that jumps out at me as I'm looking at this, here's the instructions. Those of you that don't know any instructions, there aren't even any words. It's just a diagram of how this thing fits together, which that's all there is to it. Like, I just took one glance at it and I'm like, okay, I got it. Now, looking at this, the hardest part of this, and I say hard loosely because it's not really that hard, but understand that some of you aren't DIY people. You don't like doing stuff on your own. You'd rather just have it built, something you can put together or something that comes pre-assembled. I get it. The hardest part of this thing is, you have to screw in this barb fitting, correction. You have to put Teflon tape, which they give you in the kit, wrap it around here, then screw it into the side of the scrubber. Then you have to take the nut off the bulkhead, pass the bulkhead through it, and put the nut back on. Super simple. Even if you don't know how to plumb or you're afraid of plumbing, that's really easy to do. Not a problem there. Okay, so that being said, let me jump back into this thing. One thing that that's a cover, yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with just sticking the light on the side of your algae turf scrubber. And one of my kind of gripes about them before is there's a lot of light spillage, which is going to make algae grow in your sump, which most of us don't like. We like our sumps to be nice and clean. This is a cover that slides on, and then, this is cool, check this out. The lights just slide. I'm holding both lights in one hand because they're joined together. The lights slide down into this channel, which again it's nice and clean. It's clearly cut on a CNC machine, so we have a cover to help prevent light spillage. Then we have this light that just slides right down into here. There's no having to unscrew things, put in mounting kits, none of that. There's a light on the other side to double your light output and therefore double your algae growth. Sits in there just like that. And here's something that's cool, I'm just noticing. This is all AC. There's no DC, AC to DC power brick that you have to figure out where you're gonna mount. These are joined together. One plug powers both lights. So for those of you that have like a tank controller, you don't have to use up two plugs because you've got two lights. Both lights are put together into one plug. So again, what I'm seeing is everything looks very professional. This has clearly been put together, I say in a factory. There's not much to this thing. I'm like kind of looking at this thinking like I should talk for another 5 minutes, but there's no reason to. We then have Here you go. Here's the lid. Here's the actual material where the algae grows that does your nutrient export. Yeah, okay. So here's something that I just found that's cool. Check this out. All you got to do to mount this, the mesh, feed it through this ring here, and then these little tabs, plastic tabs, sit through there. And then you just line this up. Hang on just a second, bear with me, I'll show you this. It's kind of hard to do with up in the air. There. So, these two tabs go through the mesh to hold it in place. There's no set screws to deal with. I don't have to thread things and like try to line things up perfectly. The hardest part of that is getting this mesh through this hole, which is nothing. So then if I want to clean this, which was one of my past gripes about cleaning algae turf scrubbers, is they can be a mess to clean. All I gotta do is pop this out like this, walk it over to my sink, give it a good scrub, and I can set it back in the turf scrubber, set the lid on, and I'm done. Like there's not much to this, but even though there's not much to it, like it's well thought out, it's all machined really well, everything looks really clean. This looks much more professional than what I've seen before. Now I say that with caution. Again, there's nothing wrong with DIY garage people doing their work. A lot of companies started like that, that's fine. But for what I'm looking for in my builds, for myself and for my clients in the past, what I've seen didn't fit the bill. This is much more professional. I like the way it looks. Heck, let's set this thing up. We'll take another look at this thing. Let me set this thing up. I'm gonna put it here on my frag tank. Got a fish or two in here. Let's see what we get. Let's see how easy it is to actually put into place, use it, and let's see what kind of nutrient pull down I may get out of this, what, 60-gallon frag tank. So that being said, thinking about setting this up, the only thing that the kit doesn't include that you will need is some kind of feed pump. You've got to pump water into the turf scrubber. That can easily be done with some kind of small pump, like a Sichet, or if you are into plumbing and you have a manifold off your return pump, you can easily feed it into this 1/2-inch barb fitting here. Lots of easy ways to feed water through your turf scrubber. So there you go. There's my first look at the Clearwater algae turf scrubber, now built by Adaptive Reef. The build quality of this thing has massively improved. Looks very professional, very clean, with some nice little enhancements with how easy this thing is to put together. I mean, you don't have to be a plumbing or DIY person to figure out how to put this thing together. You don't need any special tools. It's a piece of cake. Now I'm gonna stop talking here. I'm gonna put this thing together, let it run for a little bit, a couple weeks, and see what kind of results I get about putting this thing to work.